Okay, so I kind of wanted to move away from Marvel and DC for a little bit when it comes to our secondary videos of the day. And the thing was, we could have done that with more like Spawn comics or any other books out there, really. I had a good few ideas, but I kind of sat down when someone said, like, hey, you should cover G.I. Joe. Now, technically, he told me to cover G.I. Joe in the early days, and I was like, maybe. But then I realized there's a brand new universe that's coming together with the Transformers and the G.I. Joe in the same universe. And I was like, well, why don't we go ahead and just sit down and cover that instead? I'm sorry, but like that right there sounds very intriguing to me. Now, when it came to this brand new universe for G.I. Joe, they had a few miniseries at first that led into the actual G.I. Joe series. Like, for example, the first one's called Duke. It's all about Duke in a 5-part miniseries about him in this brand new universe and how he got involved in this reality. And technically, at first, I will admit, like the first like 2 or 3, 4 pages, I wasn't really pulled in, right? Because the first 2 pages, it's just narration, basically telling us like how great Duke was on and off the field, a great leader on and off the field. And so at first I was like, okay, this already tells me that in the present day, Duke is not this great guy anymore. Like Duke had fallen off. The question is, how in the world did he fall off? And so as we do switch over to the present day, we see him having a conversation with Colonel Hawk. Now, when it comes to Colonel Hawk, it's him wanting to bring Duke back in. Like, hey man, listen, we understand you went through a few things, but like, we want to go ahead and bring you in. Now, this part right here what pulled me in technically, because when it came to Duke, he tells us that the reason why he began to fall off as a soldier is what he saw out there in the field one day. He ran into a transformer. And that transformer he saw was Starscream. And so for Starscream, he appeared out of nowhere as a jet that turned into a huge robot, grabbed his partner, and squished his partner, killing him right there. And for Duke, he barely got away. But the thing was, when it came to Duke, when he told what happened to his partner out there in the field, no one believed him. And so when it came to Duke, he also gets upset about the idea that they're trying to cover it up. Like, hey, listen, we lied to his family. We lied to the public. Like, we're not going to tell his family and the public what exactly happened to him because apparently you saw some jet turn into a giant robot. That sounds ridiculous. And so for Duke, he's kind of like, you know what? I'm not coming back. And technically, the colonel tells them, yeah, I can't take you back because it does seem like you still believe that technically happened, even though that sounds crazy and wild. Now, 6 months later, we do pick up with Duke, right? And it's Duke in Washington, D.C. Now, for Duke, he does arrive at this alien conspiracy convention, like different people with different types of alien conspiracies. But while being there, he runs into Adele Burkhart. Now, for Adele, she becomes very important for the first chapter of this storyline because for Adele, she also believes in the idea of like aliens, but also she's in charge of this whole convention. And she was kind of hoping to meet Duke. Here's a reason why, because she believed in using this cosmic energy that came from the Big Bang, supposedly, to help create clean energy, but also use a clean energy for different types of things. The problem was that she began to work for a company who wanted to use that energy to create, powerful weapons for possibly mass destruction. And the thing is, she believed that Duke, what he saw was one of those weapons. Now, we already know that's not the case. The dude saw a transformer. But for these two characters, they have no idea what exactly is going on here at the moment. All they know is that Duke saw some giant robot that turned into a jet. And that's really it. But it's also her saying that with him believing what he saw, that most likely he saw, one of the weapons that was created by one of her old companies that she used to work for. And we do learn the company she used to work for is Mars Industries. Now for Duke, he is able to sneak his way into the actual building, right? But while doing that, he discovers that this place has a multi-level underground base that basically has all these different types of weapons to use out there in the field. The thing is, he finds these robotic exosuit plans. And so with him finding those plans, the dude automatically believes that this company is responsible for what happened to his partner when it came to that giant robot that killed him. The problem is, it's not them. Like, that giant robot we saw earlier was Starscream. But for Duke, he does not know the full picture just yet. But while you have Duke trying his best to collect more and more information, unfortunately, he is then founded. You see, you have Duke fight against a character known as Mercer. Now, their battle at first does kind of seem like equally matched, but as the battle goes on, we do see that Mercer does have the edge over, well, Duke here. Now, while you do have the two characters battling against one another, you did have the employer of Mercer tell him to basically stop. Now, we're not really told, like, who is the employer here. All really told is that the employer said, hey, listen, when it comes to my family and our business, we didn't kill every single person who was trying to poke their nose into our business. There are other ways to deal with someone like him. And so we see right now that he's going after somebody that Duke was working with. And of course, that will be Burkhart. And so you do have Duke head back over to Washington, D.C. to hopefully meet up with Adele. The problem is that when he does arrive to Washington, D.C. and trying to make a call, he realized the same building that was holding that meeting with different people with different types of conspiracies have all been shot. But Adele Burkhart has also been shot and she is dying. And apparently she met with somebody who tricked her in believing that they believe the same thing that she was believing in at the moment. But they were only there to steal all of her research. Now, she was able to hold on to one flash drive, and of course, she hands it over to Duke and tells Duke to make sure to protect this with his life. Now, as she dies, you didn't have an army of police officers just busting into the room, right? And when they do, you're kind of like, okay, someone basically set up Duke here. Now, Duke was able to get away, but he was shot a couple of times by the police officers. Now, with Duke kind of being compromised at the moment, you do have Colonel Hawk tell his assistant, Courtney Krieger, that basically Duke has to be taken down. The problem is Duke is an American hero. And so for him, there's only one way to bring down an American hero. And that's using other American heroes. So like Stalker and Rock and Roll. Two other characters who are now going to go after Duke to hopefully officially bring him in. Now, this leads us into the second chapter of the storyline, where now we're picking up with Duke on the run, right? And you have the military police right now trying to chase down Duke. Now, this brings in a new character because for Duke, he already knows that he can't go to different people from his army days or even prior to his army days. He has to go even farther than that, like the good old days when you have friends when you were a young boy. And so this brings in a character known as Clutch. Now, for Clutch, that's his nickname. Him and Duke, they go way back. And Clutch just found out that Duke is technically on the run at the moment, but it's also Clutch realizing that Duke is at his place. But also for Clutch, he had a girl over, right? And Homeboy forgotten what the girl name was. So of course she does get very upset about the idea that he doesn't remember who she is after they had just spent the night with one another. Now, after that, you didn't have Clutch kind of help Duke recover. But after doing that, you didn't have Duke begin to explain to Clutch, like, what he has saw. The whole idea that he saw this giant robot turn into a jet and flew away. So, of course, for Clutch, he's kind of like, that sounds ridiculous. But at the same time, he knows Duke. If Duke saw something, there's a possibility what he saw is possibly true. Now, with all that being said, you didn't have Duke hand Clutch the flash drive that was given to him by Burkhart. And you have Clutch say that usually this kind of device is used to track down different devices that have some kind of tracker on them so they can use this to locate those different devices. And so that hard drive that she gave him is technically tracking right now a device, some kind of tech that was left behind by Burkhart. Now, our mysterious character gets a notification that, well, Duke had found something, and that person not like what Duke had found. And so our mysterious person does hit this button, of course, to bring some trouble to Duke's way. Now, when it comes to Clutch, he does ask Duke, like, why don't you just go out of your way to bring in some help, like, from your younger brother? Now, we're not going to meet Duke's brother just yet, but you do have Duke and also Clutch just walking around Clutch's home, but at the moment, they're then attacked by those two other American heroes, like, for example, good old Rock and Roll. Now, for Rock and Roll, his main goal is to lead Duke and also Clutch into a trap that's set up by Stalker. And so after a few pages, when you do have the two characters trying their best to get away, they are easily captured and overpowered by Stalker and also, well, Rock and Roll. Now, while you do have Duke and Clutch be transported over to this facility, better known as the Pit, and the Pit is really used as a way to hold the most high-risk prisoners, but you do have Stalker say, listen, Duke, you need to trust the system as a way to get you out of this situation. But for Duke, he's at that point where he can no longer trust the system to help him get out of this type of situation. Now, while you do have Duke and Clutch trying to figure out how in the world they're going to be able to escape from the Pit, that is when you have Duke meet this mysterious woman who also wants her freedom, and she wants to work with Duke to hopefully get out of this prison that all three characters are currently placed in at the moment. Now, as we dive into the third chapter, we switch over to the Mars headquarters, and with the idea of Duke being able to get inside their main building in the first chapter, you now have them trying to relocate somewhere else. Now, for our mysterious character, he had learned that currently Duke is holding on to the hard drive that Burkhart had given him, and that drive, of course, can be used to locate weapons or devices or tech that she had created in the past. And so right now, they want that hard drive. And so when it comes to our mysterious character, he's going to use Major Blood as a way to go after Duke to get that hard drive from him. Now, for Rock and Roll and also Stalker, you have the two characters at the moment talking to, well, Colonel Hawk, because they both hate the idea of locking up Duke, but they also kind of believe that what Duke is trying to prove could be something very important. They kind of realize the possibility that Duke could be innocent. And so they want to kind of see if there's a possibility to help out Duke. Now, when it comes to Duke and also Clutch, you have the two characters at the moment just inside the Pit still. Now, while being inside there, Duke met a woman, and her name or code name is the Baroness. Now, the Baroness is part of like this off the books European intelligence agency. The problem is that after being part of that organization right there, she's for some reason switched over to terrorism. Now for Duke and other people, they don't really know why she did that. But the idea that she had quit the system. Now for the Baroness, her main goal is to convince Duke to help her to find a way to escape by playing with the idea that, hey, look, the same system that you are trying to protect, the same system that I had basically left behind has you locked up here at the moment. Now, is Duke also not telling her why he got locked up? Now, with all that being said, we then switch over to, well, above the ground. And when we do, we see that Major Blood had arrived. Now, for Major Blood, he's there for Duke, right? And so he released the Bloodhounds, his soldiers, to use against, well, Stalker and all his fellow soldiers. Now, for Rock and Roll, he's go out of his way to get Duke and also Clutch the heck out of there. The problem is that the attack had reached that level of the Pit. So Rock and Roll, Clutch, and also Dutch, they are Duke, not Dutch, Duke. I don't know why I said Dutch there. You have the three characters work together to fight against the forces. Now for Duke, he goes out of his way to free Baroness. And when he does, he's kind of like, hey, cool, listen, I need you to help us out. Instead, she dips out. She's kind of like, listen, you free me, that's what I wanted, and I'm gone. Now, you do have Duke be confronted by Major Blood. Now for Major Blood, as we all know, he's there for the hard drive, but it's also him telling Duke that he was the one who had killed off Burkhart. But at the same time, it's also him saying like, listen, dude, I came here to get what I was told to get from you. And so at first, he begins to shoot at Duke, beat up Duke a tad bit to hopefully have Duke go ahead and hand over the information that he came there for. But for Duke, he knows he cannot give that hard drive over to Major Blood. The thing is, while you do have the two guys talking to one another, Major Blood is shot in the back of the head. He is killed off by, of course, the Baroness. And the reason why, because there is a huge bounty on Duke's head, and she wants to kill off Duke to get her chance to get that bounty. And so as we get into the fourth chapter, we're really getting into the idea of seeing, Duke right now just trying his best to get out of this situation when it comes to the Baroness. Now, here's the thing, because for the Baroness, she has been rebelling her entire life. Every time some authority figure comes over to her, she basically moves away from them. But it's Duke saying, like, you're on a path right now which could possibly lead into nothing for you. It's him saying, like, sooner or later, you'll have nothing left in your life. But it's also him saying, like, if you kill me right now, these people will do nothing at all until they scorch the entire earth to now get to you. You'll be caught in this mess as well. So why in the world would you want to go ahead and kill me to supposedly collect some kind of bounty? And so you do have Baroness realize that Duke is right, and she begins to help him and the others out. But that kind of leads into the second half of this, part right here, the fourth chapter, because what happens next is you have Rock and Roll, Stalker, Clutch, Duke, and also Baroness begin to work together to fight against Major Blood and his forces. Oh yeah, Major Blood survived that shot in the back of his head, which honestly is pretty wild, but I know it's comics. Anyways, though, you do have our heroes going to use different types of vehicles or weapons to fight against the forces of Major Blood. Now, with all that being said, you then have Duke and Baroness leave. Now, Baroness is her saying, like, listen, you helped me escape, and now it's time for me to go. So goodbye. Now for Duke, it's him saying, I gotta finish the mission. Like, Burkhart gave me that hard drive for a special reason, and I need to go through this mission. So he also leaves as well. Now, when it comes to our mysterious character and Mercer, they both know that Duke is technically on their way. So what they do is they call in Scrap Iron. All these different characters just popping up left and right. Now, when it comes to Scrap Iron, his job is to make sure that Duke's jet does not land in their hangar at all. So, of course, we do see Duke's jet get blown out of the sky. And we're kind of left to believe at first, like, okay, Scrap Iron was able to get Duke. But the thing is, this is a 5-part miniseries, so we already know there's no way to kill Duke off in the 4th chapter of this miniseries just like that. Also because Duke's one of the main characters of G.I. Joe. Anyways, you do have Duke surviving the plane crash and being able to sneak into the actual base. Now, while you do have Duke inside the base, is Duke still believing in the idea that this corporation has somehow built that robot, that giant robot that killed off his best friend, of course, talking about the Transformer. And so for Duke, as he walks around the base, he's then confronted by, man, I feel bad for Duke, but Duke is then confronted by a battle android trooper. Now, as we get into the 5th chapter, we see Colonel Hawk right now just interrogating Clutch, like, where in the world is Duke at? Like, you gotta tell us right now. Now, for Clutch, of course, he ain't gonna say anything, but they do find the tracker that basically Duke used earlier to figure out where to go next. So right now they know where to go next. And so of course they're heading to that location. Now, when it comes to Duke, he's then confronted by Destro as well. Now, for Destro, he's the man in charge of the whole entire Mars company. Now, when it comes to Destro, he's kind of like, listen, when it comes to wars, what's used in wars all the time? Weapons. And the thing is, my family have been the people to provide those weapons because weapons wins wars. Weapons control wars. And so with him saying that, it basically means that what he wants to do is create more and more weapons to control the world because the world needs weapons to win wars, to win battles. If you control the weapons, you control the entire world. Now, it's also Duke wanting to tell Destro, like, I know that it was you who had created that giant robot that turned into a jet. Now, for Duke, his mind gets blown here because it's Destro telling him, like, No, that wasn't me. Now, there's a possibility that it could be your people, but like, it wasn't me. Now, he also tries his best to recruit Duke on his side. He's like, dude, look, your organization, they basically abandoned you. They left you behind. They threw you away like trash. So why in the world are you still fighting for them? And for Duke, he does not take Destro's offer at all. And matter of fact, what happens next is that you really have Duke tell Destro no. And so you have Destro leave. Now, at Destro leave, you have Mercer also inform Destro like, hey, listen, that tracker that Duke used to find this place, most likely the rest of his crew, Colonel Hawk and them, can basically use the same tracker to find his place as well. So it's Mercer saying like, we gotta get rid of the base, boss. And for Destro, he's okay with that. So he does blow the place up. Now, before the place does blow up, you do have Duke being able to bring down the battle armor trooper to win that battle against it. But the base did get blown up. And we're kind of left to believe at first that Duke is dead. As we already know, Duke is not dead, but to the rest of the world, Duke is possibly dead. As a matter of fact, you have the news reporting about him in a way where it's like, yeah, he's dead. He's no longer around. But even though he's not dead, this right here gives him a tad bit of more freedom. Because once he does wake up, he's then confronted by Colonel Hawk. This leads into the whole idea of the G.I. Joe group coming together, because once you do have Colonel Hawk confront Duke in the hospital, he's kind of like, hey, listen, I have an idea. I'm putting together a special force. Now for Duke, he wants to say no, because it's him now realizing that Colonel Hawk basically used him as a way to find the different headquarters of Mars to hopefully bring them down, which also means that the whole idea of the giant robot that Duke saw a long time ago, Colonel Hawk knew about it, or possibly something else about it as well. Because you didn't have Duke say like, so you technically used me to bring down or supposedly bring down this organization. They weren't brought down, and now you want me to lead this group right here, some special force? And he's kind of like, yes. But he also shows Duke a video. That video is Optimus Prime, another Transformer. He's kind of like, listen, it's not just giant robots turning into jets. It's giant robots turning into different vehicles out there in the world. And so for for Duke, they all got to go. But this is where we're going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.